Hello everyone! In this challenge, we are going to learn just how easy it is to code a new plugin. So go ahead and fire up your local dev environment, Fictional University, and first I will show you the basic steps of creating a plugin, and then once you're up and running and familiar with the basics, I will leave you with a few challenges for different plugins that you can work on. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. So the first step to creating a plugin is to simply dig into your WP content folder. So find the files that are powering your website. In my case, that's local sites, Fictional University, app, WP content, and finally dig into the plugins folder. So here you will see any and all plugins that you've installed. And now it's our turn to create our own plugin. So in this directory, alongside all of these existing plugins, let's just create a brand new folder. In the real world, you will want to give it a unique name that makes sense in terms of what the plugin actually does, but since we are just learning, why don't we name it My First Amazing Plugin? Okay, then let's go inside that new folder. And now we just need to create a PHP file that lives inside this folder. So I'm going to open up my new plugin folder in my text editor. Okay, and within that new plugin folder, create a new file. I will name this file My First Amazing Plugin.php. Okay, within this file, let's begin by opening up a PHP tag. And in order for WordPress to recognize this file as a plugin, we need to begin with a comment. So in PHP, /star lets you create a multi-line comment. And then down here we can close out the multi-line comment with //. Okay, now in the middle of the comment, we need to say plugin name, : and make up whatever name you want. So I will say My First Amazing Plugin. We also want to include a description, so description : this plugin will change your life. Okay, with this in place, we can go ahead and save this file. And now let's jump into our admin dashboard and activate this plugin. So over on my website, jump into the admin. In the sidebar, click on plugins. Cool, and there we see it. My First Amazing Plugin. This plugin will change your life. Go ahead and click activate. Okay, but obviously since our plugin doesn't actually contain any code, it's not doing anything at the moment. But now that it's activated, let's give ourselves a goal. So what do we want to build? Well, if we look at the front end of our website and then view any detail screen, whether that's a blog post or an event or a page, just as an example, you can click on one of your blog posts. And for whatever reason, let's imagine that we want to programmatically add a little bit of content after the main content. Or maybe we want to programmatically manipulate the content in some way. This is the perfect case for a plugin. So back in our code, on a new line, let's say add filter, and we're going to give this function 2 arguments. The first is the name of the filter hook that we want to target. In this case, it would be the content. And then the second argument is our function that we want to run. So we get to make up a name. Why don't we call it Amazing Content Edits? Okay, then on a new line, let's create a function with this exact matching name. Function Amazing Content Edits. And WordPress is going to pass the content data into our function. So within the parentheses for our function definition, let's include a parameter. Let's say content. And now the idea is that we can manipulate and return this content. So within the body of our function, we would return content. But the idea is that before we return it, we want to do something to it. So for example, we could say content equals whatever the content is to begin with, and then add on maybe a string of text, and then we could include a paragraph and say all content belongs to Fictional University, : close out the paragraph, end the line with a semicolon. Go ahead and save that. And if we refresh, there we can see our plugin in action. And this will show up anywhere on our website that we are using the content function. We could also use our filter to filter out bad words, so profanity, or you could filter out common typos that you know your team might make. So for example, let's pretend that the word lorem is a bad word that we want to filter or censor. Well, back in our code, the idea is that we can manipulate this content in any way we want to before we return it. So maybe on a new line, I could say content equals, and then I could use a PHP function named string replace or str replace. Okay, within this function, we want to give it 3 arguments. The first is the word or phrase that you want to replace. So in this case, maybe lorem. Second argument is what you want to replace it with. So maybe just a few asterisks. And the third argument is the overall string of text that you are filtering. So that would be our content. So if I go ahead and save that and refresh, cool, you can see the word lorem got filtered. Now, I do want to point out that our plugin is not actually changing any data in the database. The code we wrote in our plugin is just filtering the output of the WordPress function named theContent. So anywhere in our front-end templates where we used theContent, well, what it displays and outputs is going to be affected by our plugin. The creators of WordPress set it up so that just about every single aspect of WordPress can be customized through event and filter hooks. Basically, if you think back to our functions.php file in our theme folder, we already learned how to do all sorts of things by using add action and add filter. A plugin is really no different than a theme's functions.php file. In both cases, we are just programmatically manipulating WordPress. The idea with a plugin is that it's a separate shareable file or folder with a focused purpose. So your first challenge in this video is a bit generic and open-ended. I'm encouraging you to experiment with a filter. In addition to filtering the content, you could try out the title or the excerpt. You get the idea. And go ahead and try to get creative. Think of common typos that your team might make. If there's certain words you want to find and replace dynamically, feel free to experiment. If you want to pause the video right now and experiment with filters, that's great, because right now we are going to move on to the second challenge in this video. For this second challenge, it's not going to be as open-ended, and I'm going to give you a specific assignment. So if we go to our About Us page, you could imagine that in this text we would want something that says, our school has blank number of programs. And we would want that number of programs to be dynamic, so that if in the future I add another 3 or 4 program posts, then that sentence that says we have blank number of programs should just automatically be updated and current. Now the problem right away is that we are not allowed to add PHP within the body content for a page or post. So let me show you what I mean. If I go into my admin dashboard and click on Pages and edit the About Us page, you could imagine I would want another paragraph that says, our school has blank programs. And you could imagine that this would be 5 or 12 or 30. But the idea is that we don't want to hard code it to a number within this text here. We want this to automatically look inside our database and count how many program posts we have. However, in WordPress, you are not allowed to include PHP code directly in this body content field. So this wouldn't work. So if your first instinct was to use a WordPress count function or write your own query, that isn't going to work here. Instead, I want to introduce you to something named shortcodes. Basically, a shortcode is something you can use in the main content field, and you use square brackets. So you could say program count, right? That's housed within an opening and closing square bracket. And now WordPress is going to look within your theme and any currently installed plugins for code that is on the lookout for a shortcode named program count. And that shortcode is allowed to run PHP. So let me show you what I mean. Within your About Us page, go ahead and add this. Opening square bracket, and then just make up a name. I'm using program count, closing square bracket. So go ahead and save that or update it. And now if I refresh my front end, here we see our school has, and then obviously we would want that to be replaced with an actual number. So back in our plugin, on a new line, let's say add shortcode, and we want to give this function 2 arguments. The first is the shortcode name that we want to be on the lookout for. So in my case, that's program count. And then the second argument is a custom function that you want to run. So you can make up a name. I will say program count function. And then let's create a function with that exact matching name. So function program count function, parentheses, curly brackets. And now whatever this function returns is what will be replaced with the shortcode. So for example, if I say return 5 and save that, refresh the front end, our school has 5 programs. Now just hard coding a number is not very impressive. The idea here is that we can perform PHP operations, like 2 plus 2. Save that. Now we see 4. So the idea here is that you can run any sort of WordPress functions. You could create a custom WordPress query. You can do anything you want and then return any number or string or value that you want to. So your challenge is to write the necessary code to return the correct and current number of program posts. If you're not sure how to do that and you need to do a bit of Googling for guidance or inspiration or look for WordPress documentation, that's okay, because that's exactly what professional developers do. Okay, so that's the challenge, and that's going to bring this video to a close. If you're a bit underwhelmed and you're scratching your head and wondering how you're supposed to create the next $1 million plugin, just know that the act of creating a complex plugin and getting it added to the official WordPress plugin library and even monetizing your plugin, that is all outside the scope of this course. That would really need to be its own 10 to 20 hour video course dedicated just to that topic. In this video, I just wanted to show you the very basics of what a plugin is, how to get started, and that it's not intimidating to dip your toes into the plugin waters. So I encourage you to experiment with plugins, because if it's something you enjoy, there is definitely a career path for plugin developers. And if you really want to get started creating more advanced plugins, and maybe create your own menu in the admin sidebar for your plugin, if you're interested in that, I would encourage you to research the WordPress documentation for things like add menu page, as well as add option, get option, update option, and delete option. Okay, just researching those 5 things should definitely point you in the right direction. That's going to do it for this challenge video. Let's keep things rolling, and I will see you in the next one.